Hello. We're going to do a little review, or I'm going to do a little review of Romolo or Remo. This was a game my friend picked up. It's a little bit of an older game, but I was very excited because it's sort of a Roman civilization building, and there's some combat involved and building buildings. And I think one of the most interesting things about the game going into it was the idea that the buildings are not necessarily yours. You have a tower, but anything else you build is sort of common property. And I thought that was a very clever idea. So I studied the manual for a number of days. It's not an easy manual. It's a lot of things going on, a lot of interlocking parts. There's a whole market of buying and selling and what things can be built where and how many things can be built. There's battles that can occur and these walls that prevent you from going directly in without taking some damage. And then there's a whole table of how to conclude combat and who wins. There's mercenaries. Everything from the game, you can be at a shore and produce sea salt and use that to pay people. There's farms and where things can be built. It all makes a complete, sensible picture of really what would occur between sort of like feuding families and getting more people. And the issue is that it is just too slow. I don't mind games where there's a slow build up. I don't mind very long games like Antiquity, something like that, where you're really involved and you're in it the entire way. And there was a sense of progression. I would say after even the first hour or so of the game, there seemed to be very little progress. The costs for each thing that you're building is quite steep, and where you can build it, how many things your people can do, because really they could do so little on one turn, and making sure that at the end of the turn they're close enough to a farm to be fed. The components are okay. They're not pretty or anything, but I don't think in a game like this that matters at all. I don't really care so much about it. It doesn't have to look stunning on the board. My big criticism with the production of the game is just a graphic design issue. There are these tiles. They're people that you can hire. They're like these personages or something. These personalities you can buy, and the problem with them is that they have these, difficult early Roman names or titles, and there's absolutely nothing on the tile itself that tells you what the character does. So you need like this list that I printed out. It's in the rule book as well, and it's also on the back on the card telling you what it is. But you have to constantly remind yourself like, well, what does this guy do, and if I want to buy him. The costs for them can be very steep as well. The market values, sometimes things can be so low that it doesn't really cost so much to, or it doesn't pay to really sell things and buy things. Again, it all makes total sense in real life. Oh, too much is being sold of something, so its value is going to go down, and maybe you want to up the value of something else. The issue for me with this game, and why I'm not going to really recommend it, I love so many games, and I really wanted to like this one. Exploring tiles, finding out, oh, what's the next thing that you're gonna see. Um, the rules, I don't mind that they're very complex and you have to think about so many aspects going down the line, what the final value of things are going to be and where you're going to control things. The problem for me is that there's just not that much of a fun value. And I know, talking about a heavy Euro, I don't even know if I really call this a Euro game, because there's not really interlocking mechanisms. It's just a lot of complexity. So, it's more a civilization building type game. I don't know. It just kind of fell flat. I just didn't really find the game to be that much fun. And that to me is a real disappointment, because the components are really interesting enough and they make sense, and all of this. Um, I don't mean that if you didn't want to buy this game and really try it out for yourself, it just wasn't a game that I found that engaging and something that I would want to invest so much time in. There are other games where if I'm doing similar things like this, I don't mind spending the 4 or 5 hours to go through it, and they also make a lot of sense. This one makes a lot of sense, but One of the other reasons why this game kind of really disappointed me is that one of my all-time favorite games is this wonderful game called Bo Marzo. And the company, it's an Italian company, Chicks or something. I'm not sure how to pronounce it in Italian, but it's a fantastic game, and I love the company for making it and producing such a wonderful game. And Romolo Remo was by the same company. And so again, I was really going into, oh, love Bo Marzo so much. This is going to be great. You know, Bo Marzo, I know it's not the most popular game, but it's one of those games that I really think needs, a lot more love, and just a really, really wonderful, tight, interesting game with a unique mechanism. Here I'm doing a video for one game, and I'm promoting this one, Bo Marzo. But Romolo Remo, again, just didn't live up to what my expectations were. Maybe that's why I'm also frustrated. One aspect of the game that I should mention is in the combat phase, they give you two different options. You could either use these virtual die faces, basically. You kind of hide which one you're going to choose during a combat, and then you reveal it, and it has an effect on the game. The other one, and then you can't use it again until you've gone through a whole bunch of combat, which is a big portion of the game. The other option is to use a die, and in a game that takes many hours to really go through the entire thing, and you're setting up yourself for combat, and then, wow, that didn't turn out well, seems to me kind of ludicrous. I would definitely, if you are going to play the game, I would, even though the rulebook says it takes less time, not that much less time, I would definitely use the tokens so that you could make decisions rather than randomize what's going to happen. So that's a thought there too. So after playing this game, I took a shower because I really had to just refresh myself because I was so disappointed by the actual gameplay. Just to give you an example of why I thought the game was really so laborious. Let's say you wanted to produce something. So your worker gets only a couple of actions, and let's say you're on this area here, or here, let's put it there just as an example. And so on his action, he could either move and then do something, or he could just do something and then his action is done. So you use this worker to, let's say, till the field, and then he produces one grain, unless you have something that makes it more, and then that grain has to go in a hex that has a warehouse, and the warehouse can't have anything in it. Now, do you get this resource? Not immediately. You'd have to walk someone else over there, and if you wanted to use it at the same turn, then you have to use that worker to gather it, which then you would need another worker to then use the things that you have. Having only these two actions and making a move, if you do an action after moving, then you're done, or if you do that action, then you can't move. I almost feel like if each worker had two actions and they could be two different things, not including moving, that would have sped things up. Like I could use a worker, he could till the field, and then he can gather what it is. The other issue is the farms. Well, farms can only go on fields, and you need to keep your workers pretty close to these farms because they need to be fed at the end of every turn. The farm feeds only two. So the way that our board just kind of emerged, which is a random thing, there's all of these hills, and the hills can have farms. I guess it could have a rock farm like my wife had suggested, but that's not going to feed anyone, which is kind of funny. So that means if you go to somewhere that's distant, you either need to have another character that you've bought, which there's only one of them that can feed those guys, or one that I know of, or you have to then till the fields and have grain in hand to feed these guys that are far away. And when you look at the costs, now if maybe a building was just like one or two elements, okay, then you could have done something fairly quickly and build up your area. But when you look at the cost of things, when you see like a sawmill is 4 of the stone and 1 of the wood, and that goes on the forest, so you'd have to gain a lot of this white stuff and then have a guy there to build the thing so that later on you can produce wood, and all this does is get you one extra wood, which you then put into the buildup is so slow that it really counteracted the fun that I think could have really been in this game, and that's what disappointed me is. I almost feel like if I use a couple of house rules to speed up the the building of interesting things, then the game could have a little bit more interest. Or perhaps what if there's only a limited amount of the other areas? I don't know. The idea that there's when I revealed at the end of the game, not everything was explored. When we revealed, it turned out there was very little water, and then there's a couple of forests, and they were far away, and it was a lot of just these fields, and then a lot of these hills. So it limited what you could actually do if we would have gone everywhere. You can't build on so many of these places. Again, really frustrating to me that this could have been such a fun game, such interesting ideas, and just not developed to a place where I found it interesting. Maybe you will, so I'd give it a try. Don't go necessarily just on my recommendation. A lot of other people I read really enjoyed this game, but my feeling was I'm going to pass.